So YouTube, it is that time of the year again. It's starting to warm up here in the UK, and if you've been tangled or you're orange in any way like me, you're going to want to be getting out the factor 5,000. But it is that time of year that every YouTuber jumps on the bandwagon and tells you how to look after your fish in a heat wave. Well, yeah, this ain't going to be no different. Listen up. So what are the carbon problems in a heat wave? Well, everybody's going to tell you that you need to add a lot of extra aeration to your water because hot water doesn't hold enough oxygen like cool water does. Well, while that is true, the difference between the amount of DO, dissolved oxygen, in 20 degrees water is drastically different to that in 80 degrees water. The difference at sea level, granted, between the dissolved oxygen value of 25 degrees water to 30 degrees water is less than 0.1 of a milligram per litre. 7.5-ish at 30 degrees. Around 8.1-ish for 25 degrees. So is that really that big of an issue? For me, no. If you have a decent amount of surface agitation, as in your filter is not a low flow filter, it's not a tank that is designed for almost stagnant water breeding or anything like that, then you shouldn't have a problem. If you have a better, and it's particularly long fins, maybe it's a half moon or even a crown tail, then yes, you may need to just turn up the flow a little bit. But when you do that, what you then can do, and what you probably need to do, to save jettisoning your better around the tank in some sort of hellish 5-gallon whirlpool, is aim the flow somewhere else. You want to create as much flow and as much splashing as possible, but if you could direct that straight at one of the glass walls, that will drastically reduce the flow that your better's having to fight against. Because the last thing it needs in elevated temperatures is to have to exert more energy and use more oxygen. My killifish tanks, they're not stocked high enough to run out of oxygen, even though they are low flow environments. My pleco tanks, they're generally just high pans, so they're used to the high temperatures. It's not going to get higher than 30, 31 degrees in there, even with the elevated temperature outside. So we're not really going to worry about that. They have sufficient oxygen. But okay, you don't have a lot of water movement in your aquarium for whatever reason. You don't want to increase that. What can you do? Evaporative cooling. It's that simple. If you've got a lid, open it. If the fish is a jumper, try and place a net over there so the fish can't jump out, but you've still got room for the water to evaporate from the surface. Is that enough? Well, you could open your window. If, however, the sunlight coming through that window is likely to hit the aquarium, that's going to make things worse. We know glass magnifies heat and light. So instead, close your curtains. If you can afford to, put a fan on in the room and aim it not directly across the top necessarily, but in the general direction of the aquarium. Create some sort of breeze, which will aid and speed up the evaporative cooling. So those are the easiest methods. The more time-consuming method is a chilled bottle of water. How big a bottle, how cold, well, that's up to you. You're gonna have to use your common sense on that. But do not put frozen water bottles into your aquarium. The thing is the frozen water, whilst it will have more of a dramatic effect on temperature drop, which is essentially what we're trying to achieve, right? The issue with that is that around it, unless you have high flow, it's going to create a very cold area around it. And fish, well, they're not always that smart, right? Last thing you want to do is try and save them, go through all that effort and the planning of multiple bottles on a cycle just to go and kill them with temperature shock. But I feed frozen food all the time and I never defrost it. Yes, so do I. The thing is that it's a very small volume and the outside is what they're eating. And that's defrosting first, rapidly in fact. A 1 litre or even a half a litre bottle of frozen water does not defrost that quickly. We know this. So guys, obviously keep an eye on your numbers. I'm sure you know what to do anyway, because people tell you every time they take a sweater off, right? But just in case you didn't, follow those steps and that's about as best as you can do.